Thank you. This is This is the Board of County Commissioners work session for November 27th, Tuesday, 2012. It's 1 o'clock, and the first item of business we have is an interview for our Healthy Rivers and Streams Board. Jenny, is it McCarthy?
MacArthur.
MacArthur.
MacArthur, yes.
MacArthur. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. What we do in these scenarios is just ask a few questions, and I allow the other board members to sort of talk about, to ask questions of you, and then we go forward from there. So, board, do you have questions for Jenny? Yes, Jack.
Yeah, thank you very much for applying for the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board. I guess my first question is, how does your previous volunteer work with kids and raise an early learning center, etc., how does that translate to the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board position?
I think my experience on the board allows me to recognize how different entities need to work together to achieve a goal, and how to communicate with various interest groups within the community and key players, people that are funding the organisation, and to ensure that all areas, all needs are met by those parties, or for those parties.
Yeah, and that's great for boardmanship, etc. How about, do you have any background, meaning interest in having done reading and seminars and whatever in environmental issues?
I haven't done as much environmental issues. My interest in the rivers is from a recreational standpoint. I recently ran the Grand Canyon on the stand-up paddleboard from Lee's Ferry down to Phantom Ranch and hiked out. My husband and I are passionate about the riverways, and haven't done as much reading about the environmental aspects. I am active with the Environmental Foundation with the Aspen Skiing Company, and recently did a seminar on the Thompson Divide piece, but that's not directly related to what your position is about.
You participated in a seminar, or you led a seminar?
I participated in.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Board? Rob?
Thank you, Jenny, for applying. Stand-up paddle for 100 miles down the Grand Canyon. I think one of the big things that we do on our fighting for keeping water in the streams and that sort of stuff is our recreational battle for that. So I have two questions for you. First, you seem to do a good deal of kayaking and stand-up paddling. Where are the best places within Pickens County to do that is the first question. The second question is, do you have any idea how we could potentially in the future use the recreational value of the water to fight against the other economic values elsewhere?
So the first question is, where
are the best places to kayak? It's kind of a fun question.
Yeah.
The stand-up paddle within our valley.
If you're a class 5 paddler, then my husband laps Slaughterhouse Falls on his stand-up paddleboard.
On his stand-up paddleboard.
However, I'm not of that same caliber. I'm much more comfortable on Toothache and Cemetery, and we've literally run the whole section, but I hike around the falls.
Okay.
And as far as to me, stand-up paddling and kayaking go hand in hand. Can you repeat the second?
So the second question is, one of the battles that the way we fight the battles is through valuing the water. So the water has an economic value, say in Denver, feeding either agriculture or some sort of economic value. It also has an economic value here, which is the recreational economic value, and that's one of the big arguments that we're trying to make. So my question is kind of how aware are you of what the economic, recreational value of keeping the water in the rivers is for our tourists, for the community that uses that here, the community that comes here to kayak, and how do you think we could use that to fight that battle?
Well, I know that you're probably aware of the Whitewater Festival that's held each May, late May, early June, down at the Glenwood Park. And my husband and Paul Teft have been instrumental in putting that piece together to draw attention and to get people more involved from a standpoint of watching, but also to get more people in and around the area excited about participating. And ultimately, you know, if the Basalt Park goes in, we'd like to pull something in up in the Basalt area, which would also create, you know, more interest and more opportunity for people to participate, watch, get excited, and that in itself drives more attention to the resource of the water.
That's one of the big arguments we're making. Absolutely. Thank you.
George, do you have any questions?
Yeah, one of the interesting things actually is that you're would be the first new person on this board since we've actually established it about 3-4 years ago. And so I think that's great that you're applying. And my question is, it may be a little challenging to get up to speed because in the last 3 years, the current board has gone through quite a learning curve in terms of getting up to speed on water issues and legal issues and all sorts of things like that. So my question is, how do you have the time to spend to really try to get up to speed and be able to be a contributing board member on a board that's, you know, the current members have been in place for a few years and have had to go through that learning curve, but they've gone through it together?
Well, I mean, that's an excellent question, George, and I think that the reality is that every team member brings a unique set of qualities to a board. And as a newcomer, you know, initially my job would be to try to come up to speed with some of the background pieces, recognizing that there's going to be a lot of people in the room that have a lot more experience with the actual board issues than I do. And they're also going to be my teachers throughout the learning period. Certainly I'm expecting that there's going to be some reading material, and, you know, maybe that's a great opportunity for me to take a couple of people out to lunch to hear what their perspective is and how best, you know, I can bring my skill set to serve the board.
All right, thank you.
Jenny, tell me about the logistics of a stand-up paddleboard down in Colorado. Were you by yourself? Were you in a group?
I was. We had a 16-person permit, and we were supported by 7 rafts, and there were 2 kayakers and 2 stand-up paddleboarders on that.
And did you ever fall off your paddle?
Katy Perry sings a song these days that goes, "Yeah, she's up and she's down, she's on and she's up." That was me.
So how long would you stand up on your board? I mean, would you
Through the
spend
rapids?
4 hours a day?
Oh, all day.
The whole day?
All day.
8 hours a day?
Yeah.
10 hours?
Yeah.
And then the rafts would they go down before you and sort of...
Okay, I'm going to show you something then. So you paddle alongside when it's really flat, and then you put your butt on the side of the raft and ask for a drink.
But is that a normal activity on the Colorado River, stand-up paddleboards now?
It's definitely becoming more common. Many of the commercial guides that were on the trip were very excited to watch us run all the rapids.
And you ran every rapid?
I ran every rapid. I have a leash on a releasable safety rescue PFD, so that if I were to become entangled on a rock, the board would go one side and I'd come out the other. We'd get flushed through. But for the most part, you take it and you think that you're going to make it, and you're kind of coming up one of the big waves, and all of a sudden a lateral would get you, and you'd be off. And then you climb back on, stand back up, and go again.
And was the board a special river running board?
Yes, it's a board designed by C4 Waterman, and it's actually one of the boards that my husband worked with them. They're a company out of Hawaii. And
so is it a longer board? What
it's actually,
it's
wider. It's a little wider for more stability. I think the boards we were running the board I was on was 9'10", and shaped to kind of pierce through waves and not just get pushed right back. But then it had a little swallowtail in the end so that if I step back on it, I can pivot it and change direction very quickly.
A swallowtail in the end, you mean?
Kind of comes in, so it's kind of like a teardrop shape,
Uh-huh.
and then a little bit more.
Uh-huh. Wow, that sounds fantastic. Did you enjoy it, or was it?
It was amazing.
It was?
And I have to say, probably one of the biggest moments. The 2 times I've been down the Grand in my kayak, the first time I went down the Grand, I'd kayaked for 2 months, and I was definitely gripped and in over my head. And the second time I went down, I had somewhat more composure. And this time I remember falling off right before a man-eating hole that would hold me, and fell off, had my paddle still in my hand, looked and I think, oh, I don't want to do that, and just had the composure to kind of back paddle twice, and literally I skirted the edge of the wave within inches, so the hole. So, just to me, that having that composure was like, oh yes, was a big shift.
Would you do it again?
Oh, I wanted to do the whole thing.
Really?
And I still want to do the whole thing. And lava would probably eat me, but that's okay.
Excuse me, gentlemen, we can't hear if you're talking back there. I'm sorry. Okay. Jack?
Yeah, thank you. Looks like you've been a resident of the valley for 17 years, so certainly you're aware of the environmental values we hold dear to our hearts in this valley. There are times when the environment and recreation conflict. Would you address a question to, so you're aware that can happen? What would your approach be? How to protect the environment? That's the number one issue. And obviously we all are involved in recreation very seriously around here. So how would you balance that?
If I had to choose between environment and recreation and prioritize, environment comes first. Because without the environment that we live in, if we disrupt our environment too much, then all of the other factions start to fall away. So we really need to be supporting, taking care of our environment and ensuring that, there's the sustainability aspect of what we do here in the valley.
Yeah, sustainability is the key. Thank you.
Board, any further questions? I guess not. Jenny, thank you so much for being here. And typically we make our decision at some future point, and then we write you a letter, one way or the other. So I can't actually be any more specific than that.
Perfect.
But check in with John Ely, and
will do.
and he'll keep you in touch. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
your time.
application.
The next item of business is abatements. And I'm not sure we're ready for that right now. Is Larry here?
Well, Steve
I
is.
saw Steve Miller out there. I think it's him and Wendy.
These are, we decided not to email.
Just a second.
Sorry.
I'm trying to get the order straight here. Yeah. So let me see here. So the first item we have is Christopher. How do you pronounce your name, Christopher?
Thank you for asking. G.U. Frida.
G.U. Frida.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. And Steve, are you going to represent the
Yes.
assessor's
Yes, I
office?
am.
What we typically do, you can take a seat, please.
We need to have a special meeting.
Oh, we need to have a special
meeting
meeting.
still open? I didn't know you had one earlier today for executive. Is that closed?
We adjourn that.
Okay, then you need to open this as a special meeting.
So is there a,
Move to open a special meeting relative to the abatement hearings.
as the Board of Adjustment, is that what?
No, you're just going to be the Board of County Commissioners.
Board of County Commissioners. So is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. So just let me explain what our typical procedures, Christopher, is that the assessor presents the case to us, and then you have a chance to make your case, and then there'll probably be some questions, either of the assessor or of you, and then we go forward from there.
Thank you.
Okay? So Steve, do you want to outline this for us?
Mr. Giuffrida's property is a vacant lot on Shiloh Mesa, Snowmass Creek. And we had it valued, this is an abatement for the year 2011, which he did not appeal. In 2012, he appealed our value of $360,000 to the CBOE and was granted a reduction to $260,000. So our position is to, since we do these valuations in 2-year cycles, is to return the 2011 value to what the Board of Equalization recommended for 2012.
And that's 260.
Correct.
And Mr. Giuffrida is asking for something different?
Evidently, yes, sir.
So you're not aware of what he's asking for?
He originally was asking for, I think, $75,000, and then he changed it to $95,000. So I'm assuming one of those two numbers is what he is requesting.
And
$100,000.
so that's the case as far as the assessors. Is you're comfortable? You're recommending the valuation of $260,000 for the previous year,
Correct.
2011.
Based on the CBOE decision 2012.
Okay, Christopher, go ahead, please.
Again, thank you, everyone,
Yes,
for your time.
Jack.
I apologize. Do we not get to ask the assessor's representative a question at this
The
point?
assessor, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
beforehand, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I didn't know
Sure,
there was any question.
Yeah, Steve, you did some comparables.
I did.
Would you please explain to me what your comparables represent?
Well, there was
For the record, as well as a little understanding for us.
Okay, there was certainly a lack of sales in this time period between July 1st, 2008 and June 30th, 2010. So the main comparable that we hung our hat on was a 2-acre vacant lot sale on Shiloh Terraces for $500,000. And when you adjust for the size and the location and the fact that it had a well and better access, the reconciled value was $345,000. That was the main comparison. Then the next vacant lot sale was in Gateway, which is probably not that comparable, but is what we had to use. And it sold in, it was a 1-acre lot also, an inferior lot, but it had a well and better access, and it adjusted $365,000.
Actually, 2 acres.
The Gateway lot was one.
What's that?
Gateway lot was one.
Oh, Gateway, excuse me.
And then the only the next nearby best sale was on Mesa Road, on Shiloh Mesa, which was a more recent to the assessment date in April of 2010. But by the time you adjust out the improvements and everything else, you have a large adjustment, so it's not really comparable. The extraction just doesn't work that well. So we had a range of 365 to 345, giving us a value of 360. The Board of Equalization felt like, the hearing officer felt like there should be more reduction for the fact that it's a more rural site, access is sort of limited, and the cost of running the power to the lot. He felt that was worth $100,000, so he knocked $100,000 off of
Does that answer your question, Jack?
Yeah, it's certainly a good start. But one question, how do you equate dollar value to ease of access? How does the assessor to make a determination, well, this access is better and it's worth, therefore, X amount of dollars in the adjustment side?
That adjustment is an estimation of what it would cost to improve that access. X dollars per half mile or mile or whatever. And that's,
Okay, and one last question, 1041s. I notice this did not have a 1041, is that correct?
I think he had one and it expired.
Okay. And then the other comparable, you know, the two comparables, there's a minus 50,000 on the first comparable that you talked about, and then there's a 0 on the other. Would you explain what that means as far as 1041? Because I'm only looking at two comparables because the others were such large, much more larger lots.
Excuse me while I get to it.
What I'm assuming, and maybe...
Okay,
go ahead.
Excuse me. The first comparable has a land use permit. So that's where and from talking with other appraisers, the process cost you about 50 grand. By the time hire a land use planner, pay the various permits, cost, they valued about 50 grand.
Okay, so that's why there's a minus, because
They have one.
saved the money, and then the 0 would represent they need to still do it, so it's a neutral position. Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
George, did you have a question?
No, I'm fine right now.
Rob? Okay, Christopher, go ahead.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You know, I was happy that the Board of Equalization gave me a $100,000 nod. I actually got a quote from Holy Cross Energy to bring in a power line from the nearest source to my lot. It was $147,500. I brought up the details in the last hearing. Forgive me for not having them present with me. Again, the Board of Equalization took that into consideration subjectively and gave me $100,000 out of the $150,000 that it would actually cost me. Again, according to Holy Cross Energy. I felt that in and of itself alone, you know, the subjectivity was kind of eating at me. You know, the subjectivity of the assessor, we'll call it that for lack of a better word. So I'm of the thinking that, you know, if value is so subjective here, you know, what about that other 50,000? I think my lot is worth less, a lot less than these other comparable properties. Using again the primary comparable, this 2-acre raw sale for $500,000. The assessor's office came up with, okay, well, Chris, we'll give you a 20%, something like that, adjustment in value, and your lot is worth $360,000. I would like to think that, okay, that's a 2-acre parcel for $500,000. Is my lot worth half of that? I have an acre. Maybe it's not worth quite half. Again, that's subjectivity with the assessor's office I'm having a problem with. And again, then on top of that, you add in the improvements, okay? The access. I don't have paved access. I have a 2-track. I don't have utilities to the lot line, hence the $150,000 Holy Cross bill. I don't have a well. so on and so forth. Paved access is another factor that really hasn't come into the valuation of my lot. It's worth less than these comps because of the Holy Cross Energy, utility costs. Because of if I were to try to have paved access, it's probably another $50,000, $100,000. So again, these factors must be taken into consideration by you guys, and therefore I feel like my property should be valued at a lower amount. I'm asserting $100,000. Was it $75,000? Was it $95,000? It's an arbitrary figure, but I'm looking at a lot of comps, and if we add in improvements, it's almost pointing that my lot has no value. Recently, and I'm just looking at 2 sales in Shieldo Mesa, Shieldo Terrace, and we see and again, I know these are recent; these took place in 2011. But I kind of wanted to bring it to the board's attention because, we have a 4-acre parcel with a 1,500 square foot home, septic, well. It just sold for $217,000 in 2011. The market, the valuation, the bottom of the market was 2009, 2010, during this subject period. So therefore, the value should be less than what properties are selling for recently. Again, if I see a 1,500 square foot improved property, 4 acres, my neighbor selling for $217,000, my lot it's worth less than that, and it can't be some subjective thing. I'm happy to share these with you. Steve's looking at them right now. There was also a vacant parcel sold, 5.3 acres. Same time period, 2012, it just sold for $250,000. My neighbor. So how can a 5.5 acre parcel selling for $250,000 a few months ago? That's got to lend credence to my argument. My lot simply isn't worth as much as the assessor's office is saying, and the bottom line is I want to pay less in taxes. I'm under financial hardship. I'm not a developer. I'm not a wealthy individual. I'm just trying to make it on my own. And I'm here today taking your time because I just maybe want a little bit more of a fair shake. I think Steve has done an outstanding job here, but I think some things have been overlooked, and I think the value of my parcel, unfortunately, is worth less than $260,000. Again, I'm asserting $100,000 just to put a round number on it.
Is that the end of your presentation?
I think so, Mr. Owsley.
Okay.
It is.
Are there questions for Chris?
Well, I have a question just not for Chris per se, but for Steve, just to
Okay.
respond to some of the comps that Chris used and some of those examples. And I don't know if that first example that Chris used in terms of that house that sold, if that was a distressed sale, if there's any mitigating circumstances that we know about.
It was the 2011 sale, so it's not one that we would consider in this time frame we're considering is July 1st, 08 through June 30th, 2010. And I would debate whether 2009 was the bottom of the market. I mean, these sales show that values are still going down up there in that particular neighborhood. Now,
Do we have those documents?
no, these are sales that occurred after the time period we're considering.
Would you like to?
Well,
They will be considered in this 2013 revaluation.
any further questions for Steve or Chris?
Yeah, just to clarify, so because these sales occurred outside of the time frame, just like many of the requests that come before us, we can't really use them.
Not this time, no.
But next go around, then they may become much more relevant for you. But you just have to go on from that time period or close to it, but you can't go beyond that time frame.
Correct. And I would like to make a couple other points. One is that in his area, the value on these, first of all, what we're doing is valuing what you can do on 1 acre. Can you do the same on 2 acres? You know, you would think, and there probably is a little more value in having a bigger lot, but in this county, you probably still can only build a maximum of 5,750, whether it's 1 acre or 2 acres. So we're going on site value, not necessarily acreage. Second of all, in his neighborhood, those lots were valued at $450,000. And he was given a nod because of prior appeals. He was given a 20% adjustment on that lot pending forever, pending if it changed, then we take that off. So the 360 represents 20% less than everybody else in the neighborhood. And then Steve Hawk, the hearing officer at CBOE, acknowledged the cost of bringing the power there and said very likely that other lots around there would eventually share in the cost of bringing that electricity, because then they could jump off him. So that's why he didn't reduce it by 150,000, but rather 100,000. If you look at this first comparable, we have taken into account the fact that it has land use, that it has a well already, and it has better access by reducing the sale price, including even taking into account the size of it. So there's $200,000 worth of reductions off of the $500,000 sale price. So, you know, I don't know that I necessarily agreed with Mr. Hawk, but he made the decision, and we're sticking by that, and that's what we're recommending for 2011 value.
Okay, any further questions, George? Rob?
On that same comparable, Steve, there's no real time adjustment from December '09 to June 2010. It seems to me like the market was still in free fall during that time period. Why was there no time adjustment done during that time period?
I think there was none because we didn't have enough vacant land sales to figure a vacant land sale trend. So that's why you don't see one. It's not to say that perhaps it didn't go down. There just weren't enough statistics to figure one out.
And my second question is regarding some of the comparables that were brought up by the applicant, and trying to figure out where the bottom of the market is. It's my understanding that the assessor's office, or the through our budget process, has told us that we're going to see a lower valuation of property values in Pickens County in this next go-around than we have in the last go-around. So we're still in a declining state.
In some neighborhoods, especially down Valley, I would say it's true.
Board, any further questions? Yes, Jack?
Yes, Steve, why don't you help explain the land use code, the land value code, I apologize. The subject property is SOMN1-5, and a comparable is SOT1-10. I understand gateway, I mean, I understand what that one's saying. What do the other two say? I mean, I know it's
the subject
Shield O,
is Shield O, Mesa, 1 to 5 acres. And the first comp is Shield O Terrace, 1 to 10 acres. So that's what those.
So the 1-5 and the 1-5, excuse me, the 1-5 and the 110 denote actual parts of Shield O, Mesa,
areas,
Terrace,
lots,
etc.
yeah.
Okay.
Similar lots that would be similar.
And about on the well, is of course on comparables 1 and 2, there's a deduction of $30,000. Each of those have wells, and that's the going rate for a well?
At that time, approximately, yes.
Yeah, I mean during this time period.
Mhm.
Any further questions, board? Chris, would you like to respond at all?
I just wanted to make one comment regarding the valuation of the parcel. I agree with Steve that yes, whether it's a 1 acre parcel or in general a 35 acre parcel, you're only allowed to build 5750. I agree with that. However, the value of a 35 acre parcel, the value of a 5 acre parcel versus a 1 acre parcel is greater. There's no question, I don't think in anyone's mind in here. I would rather have a 5 acre parcel than a 1 acre parcel if I could buy it for the same money. Okay, so that's the reality. So again, a little subjectivity that I'm arguing against should be taken into consideration. One of the sales that took place during this time period was a parcel, it was a 3.5 acre parcel in Shieldo Terrace. It sold for $85,000. Yes, it was landlocked. It was bought by a motivated buyer. It was bought by the neighboring parcel. He spent a little money on it. You know, and I'm looking at that sale that, okay, that's a 3.5 acre parcel sold for $85,000 during this time period. It should lend a little something to my argument. But again, we're back to the main comparable, this 2 acre parcel that sold for $500,000. Again, by the same, this gentleman who bought this was motivated. He was motivated to buy this parcel and spend, in my opinion, a little too much money on it because, again, he was preserving his view plane. He was preserving his buffer between neighbors. So he had a little motivation to spend a little bit more money. My point being, it was a 2 acre parcel. Guys, my parcel is worth less than $260,000.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Board, is there a motion? Are you considering a motion? Yes, Tom?
Yeah, I can't consider a motion because I don't know where I would land yet, but obviously the assessor and the comparables that we have, you can do a mathematical kind of equation to end up where the assessor is. I think Chris makes some good arguments, but I have no idea how to place a value on those arguments. How do we reduce a little bit here? For example, the cost of power, about almost 150 versus the 100,000. I understand both sides, but what are the facts? If someone brought electricity, I assume up the road, to access these, is it clearly shared? Is that the policy of Holy Cross in every case?
I have to pay for it. And so those owners
And
would have to
someone
come
would
to me.
reimburse you?
Well, I've been trying, I bought this property in 2006. I was kind of naive and foolish to think that these neighbors would be willing participants to share in the cost of a road, utilities. I've gotten a very stiff shoulder. No one, the majority of people didn't even get back to me about my willingness to improve the property, improve our vicinity. They weren't willing to participate. They weren't willing to share in the costs of putting a paved access and putting utilities in. And the dam, if I will give them power or allow them use of the road until compensation were to happen. So right now I'm looking at fronting that entire bill with certainly no no guarantee whatsoever of anyone participating and helping me. Could I block the road and force people to pay me? Probably over time. Maybe if those older owners, if these existing owners sell, new blood comes in. I'm sure I could probably get compensation in the future, but there's certainly absolutely no guarantee of that. And I got to front the bill in the meantime. I can't afford it now, so nothing's happening.
Yeah, may I, Michael? So what I don't have, I don't remember seeing a plat, as it were, where this lot was and others are. Are you referring to lots that would be above your location?
Correct. I have to
Contiguous above,
contiguous, maybe around me, not above me. I'm kind of in the middle of about 5 parcels. I'm kind of 8/10 of a mile to my lot via the access Rural Mountain Way, and that's how Holy Cross Energy came up with their $147,000 cost. So yeah, these neighbors are more or less around me, not above me or below me, but surrounding me is the best way to describe it. And yeah, they would certainly they would be prime candidates to tap in, but
right, I'm sure state law deals with the law and then everything else is negotiated.
I mean, it's unlikely that each one of them would pay $150,000 too.
no, would they all contribute? I would love this if people would just contribute, but I was naive in thinking that. No one has stepped up and no one's willing to help me. And that was kind of a big lesson. Always learning.
George?
Yeah, the way I would look at this is when you bought this property in 2006, I would assume that you knew there were going to be some additional costs in terms of bringing power in, water, septic, and just access to the road. So somehow you must have had to figure that in addition to the cost of that property, there's going to be some additional costs that are going to be incurred. And once those amenities are brought in, then that would also typically would increase the value of your property. Except we went through this free fall, of course, but typically that's what would happen. So I would think, I also agree with Steve that I think that the hearing officer, I think, was fairly generous in terms of knocking off $100,000 based on perhaps the cost of bringing some of those amenities in when you do that. And in terms of the difference between a 1 acre and a 2 acre parcel, I think there's a larger difference between a 1 acre and a 5 acre parcel than a 1 acre and 2 acre parcel. And then it just depends, of course, within that acres, are the view planes similar? Are the building sites similar, or is that extra acre, is it on a hillside? And I don't know that. So some of those are, criteria could equal itself out. But where I see, frankly, where I see your potential savings down the road will be after this next assessment cycle, because we do have some better comps, I think, and I think that's where you'll have a better shot in terms of getting the value of your lot reassessed, reevaluated. But at this point, given the very limited, and it is difficult because there is very limited comps to use, there hasn't been any really sales up there. The assessors has to do, based on the tools and the experience they have, come up with a number, and again, went through the Board of Appeals, and they made an adjustment as well. So in this case, I would make a motion to uphold the assessor's valuation of this property.
Is there a second? Hold on, motion on the table. Is there a second? I'll second that. Chris, do you want to say something?
Just in regard to what George was saying, at the time I bought the property, I probably paid more than I should have for it, because I probably paid an amenity type price for it. Again, I was a little naive in believing that, I was going to be able to get the help of my neighbors. Hey guys, I want to improve my property. I want to live here. I love it here. I'm a regular guy. But I probably paid a little too much for it, and I paid at that amenity price. Things like septic and well in 1041 yeah, certainly, I expected to have to pay that. But that's in improving my own parcel. Things like utilities and paved access, that's different. And that's, again, I'm 0.8 of a mile worth of expense to bring that to the lot. It's a little bit different of an expense that I thought was going to be shared, and it's a big impact. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Chris. If there's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Jack?
Yeah, Steve, my question might be outside of the box of how the assessor operates, and obviously you can give me feedback. But are there times when, due to the lack of sales, which we're in that time and have been for maybe 5 years, does the assessor ever look at contiguous, similar, I don't mean neighborhood contiguous lots at the land values? Because even if it's an improved property, there's a land value and then your improvements. Does the assessor ever look at kind of comparables in that sense? Not the sale, because there's so few sales, it's almost impossible to get a range. Let's say there's 5 other 1 to 2 acre lots in Shieldo. You ever look at that and see what value those lots are?
Our values have to be based on sales, on closed sales.
On its previous sale, whenever?
On closed sales in that neighborhood or similar ones in similar neighborhoods.
So it is total, because it's the market approach?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And, that's what we have to do by law.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
So, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Steve, thank you. Yes, Liz?
Can I just offer some clarification when you say that the motion was to uphold the assessor's value? Would it be more correct to say uphold the assessor's recommendation to adjust the value to the 260?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you're clear on that also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
The next abatement.
This is over and above what we received in our boxes.
Yes, these are photos, if I may.
Sure, certainly, go ahead.
These are
Just
photos
just
that-
hand them out, and then you can explain from when we get to it.
Thank you.
Do you have another packet for me? Did you want?
I can get probably get one from the board. That's all right. I'll get one from the commission.
So, Justine, do you prefer Justine or Janae?
Janae.
Janae.
That's my nickname.
Uh-huh. Janae, okay. So, Janae, you saw how the other hearing went. We let the assessor present, and then there are questions of the assessor, and then we let you present, and there'll be questions of you. So that's how it'll go. I do notice that Michael Kramer's here, and who invited you?
Yeah, how do we have 3? Why do I have 3 assessors and the other guy only had 1?
Michael's not an assessor.
Wendy invited me to come and explain floor area if the board wishes.
For the what?
To explain floor area zoning on Red Mountain.
Okay, if that question arises. Okay. Wendy, do you want to proceed?
Does she want to go first, or?
No, I'm asking you to proceed first, Wendy, and then we'll get Jeanette.
Okay, well, I actually brought Mike in to talk about zoning, and Larry had some comments about statutes. So, if you want to start with that?
Well, let's, would you just, Wendy,
Okay.
lay out
Make your argument.
what the question is before us?
Okay, the
What the
question
valuation is of the assessor and why.
All right,
And
this
then if there's subsequent questions that need Larry's clarification or Michael's, we'll do that.
Okay, well, this is a property on 59 Heron Hollow. Let's see, it's an older home. It's at like a corner, or has a road on 3 sides. She has some issues with building FAR. She says she's restricted to 3372 above grade. I'm only allowed to use sales that have occurred to set values. So I found 5 sales to use, mostly in her neighborhood, 1 not in her neighborhood, but comparable in the home. So I'll go through those briefly. Mostly these sales that occurred in her neighborhood are between $5.3 and $10.79 million. And the petitioner would like a value of 3.3, which I see unjustifiable. So the first one, 2 doors down actually, sold for $8.9 million, time adjusted to 7.3. It's a superior property, so I took
I'm sorry, what address is this?
1033 Willoughby Way.
Okay.
So this property was built in 1980 with an effective age of 1995. The subject, 1959 when built, effective year 1975. So I took a downward adjustment for the difference. So comparable number 1 is slightly newer home. I took downward adjustments for the location, for the age of the home, and for the size of the home. I just want to also point out that this home, the comparable number 1, has an above grade first floor area of 2139. So their allowable FAR is 3673. So this one's also comparable to the subject property, and that has a lower FAR. They chose to only build 2139 above grade, yet it still sold for $8.9 million, time adjusted to that 7.3. So with all of my adjustments and comparing this one to the subject, it comes out to 5.026. The next one, the next neighborhood over on Spruce Street, 711 Spruce, sold for $4.2 million, time adjusted to 4.024. This is an inferior neighborhood. It does not have the Red Mountain name across it, so it's an inferior neighborhood. It's also an older home, built in 1980, 1983 effective age. It's slightly larger, so I took a downward adjustment for that, but same quality. This one adjusts out to 4.737. So I did that with the rest of the comparables. I looked at them and their locations and their views and compared them to the subject. And I believe a fair value for this property, instead of 5.561, would be 4.85 million. And I definitely could only use sale properties in the relevant time frame, July 1st, 2008 to June 30th, 2010. Nothing after that will be used, and I definitely cannot look at listings either. Or I cannot look at properties based off what we already set the values as. It has to be the value as a whole, not component values. When somebody buys a property, they don't say how much they bought at the land and how much they bought at the improvements. It's one value as a whole. So that's the only values I will look at.
Okay, Wendy. Now, do you need Larry or Michael to speak at this point?
No, I.
No, Justine, I'm addressing Wendy.
Oh,
Well, I wanted to point out, in some of her documentation, she says that she's only allowed 3372 square feet. But he has, because his department sets the FAR allowable, not us, I wanted him to talk about that, to put that on him, because that's his department. So it's not just coming from me. She's allowed more than 3372. She has an entire below grade with garage, and if she purchases a TDR, she's allowed much more. So that's where I wanted Mike to step in.
Just a second, George?
Just a question, back on your comparables. When you look at the Willoughby Way, I didn't see any adjustment or, well, I guess my question is in terms of views and where the sites are. Because Heron Hollow Road is, as it sounds, it's back out into a hollow.
Hers is kind of in front of that, so it's at the curve.
So views would be similar?
I think so. I mean, I didn't go into her house to see what she could see from the top floor, and I didn't go into Comparable One's home to see what they could see exactly. So I stood, with her permission, I stood on her lawn and I saw what she could see from there. And I stood on their lawn and I saw what I could see from there, and they were similar to me.
They were similar, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, now I think, well, rather than go to Michael right away, we'll hear Janae's argument, because really that's pertinent to her argument rather than your argument, as I understand it. You presented the comparables to us, and that's essentially your argument. She has another argument, and we'll deal with that at that point. Jack, do you have a question?
Sure. Real quick, Wendy, on acres and the comparables 1, 3, and 4 have no acreage.
It's the square footage in the second column below acres. So either comes
Oh,
onto
so
the
then
sheet as
that's-
acres or square footage.
Yeah, okay, got you. That's FAR neighborhood. That would be an FAR neighborhood then? Or is it, no, square, you mean
Square
acreage?
footage of the land.
Oh, yeah, okay. Something wasn't working for me, so now it is, thank you.
Any further questions for Wendy? Okay, Janae, go ahead and make your case.
Thank you. I have lived here 45 years, and I live in a house, Lot 14, Block 2 of Pitkin Green. It has a road easement of 8,215 square feet surrounding my property. That's a private road. And back in the 70s, I was downzoned, and in order to figure out allowable FAR, you have to take that road easement of 8,000 plus square feet and deduct it from your lot size. My lot size is approximately 3/4 of an acre, 34,160 square feet. And so what I'm allowed basically to build from is a 25,945 square foot lot, which is basically 6/10 of an acre. Now, I can only, and I have to this day, since my house was built in 1959, and I did a small addition with an expansion on a deck and put in another garage and an art studio, I can only have 3,372 square feet above grade. So, in taking cells in my area and comparing them in land size, since land and lots and values of lots are based on the size of the house you can build and the size of your lot, I'd like to go through a couple of schedules comparing in my neighborhood. Probably one of the largest lots that was sold in this time period was the Truesdale property and they have 2.4 acres, and that's 4 times what mine is, and the land value on that was $9 million, and the land value on my property is $5.5 million. I feel that what you have to do in these situations is compare. Just because you live in Pitkin Green, just because you're the oldest house up there and you haven't done much renovation, you shouldn't be taxed out of proportion on your land. Well, taking
Just if you could reference pages that you're getting this information.
Well,
'cause you're going to throw out a lot of numbers. It would be easier for us if we could mark it. And I know you just gave us a whole stack of new information.
Okay.
So
well,
I don't want to have all these numbers go in one ear and out the other.
Okay, why don't I do it this way, and I'll start with just basically my house in the lot, and that's page 2.1. You can see that it's an older house. It has on page 2.2, you can see the addition of the garage that I just mentioned. It has that old framing that's cheap. You can see the view. What my problem is that many of the neighbors have built and regraded their land in front of me, and I have trees that have grown up, so the views weren't what they were back in the 60s or the early 70s. This is the back side of my house. Again, 2.3, the back side, the lower part, the balcony, it is not, it's a tear down without question. Now, and you can see on 2.4 where the land is valued at $5.5 million and the house at 61. Now, if we take a look at sales in the area, which is on your front page, number 1, you can see that 109 Willoughby that sold. This is probably the most valuable piece of land in the area. This was the ponds. Sold for $20 million, I think, and the value placed on this land, which is gorgeous, ponds. You can look through, look at the views, unobstructed views of Red Mountain. The value on this piece of property was $9 million. The value on mine is $5.5 million. And yet it's 2.5 acres, so that's 4 times the size of my lot. Yet I can only build, because of my road encumbrance, I can only build a 3,300 square foot home. They have a home that is 11,437. That's page 8. 11,437. That's the size they can build. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar home. The next value is 144 Magnifico, which is it has 0.74 acres. Okay. Mine, without its roads easement, the private road easement that you have to deduct, is 0.79. Is 0.79, but mine is 0.60 acres. Yet this house that we're looking at, a beautiful home here, page 10A. Do you want a copy of this? Page 10A is much bigger. It's 6,777 square feet. They can build bigger. I can only build 3,300 square feet. It's brand new. The land value on that lot was $5.8 million. The land value on my lot is 5.5. Moving along on...
Excuse me, Michael, may I get a qualifying question? When you say the value on the land, now this is from all the assessors?
Yes.
All
Yes,
this
you can-
documentation, you go page 10?
Yes,
et
page
cetera.
10, it shows land value that he put on this during this time. And if you go to page 11, you can see that the total heated area is 6,888. Now, if you go back to mine,
Okay, one last
Yeah.
question. Are you talking about, when you say size of home, is that above grade? Because what you're
that's all
talking about
above
yours is
grade.
above grade.
That is all above grade. Everybody in Red Mountain can have another 4,000 feet below grade. You can always dig down under the earth, but even the house that Wendy had mentioned, they talk about it being below grade. It's got windows that have a view. I mean, that's not really below grade. Somehow, it's if you build on a steep slope, and originally it was below grade, then I suppose you could take out, I know one house that did this at the bottom and have it a view from below grade, but you certainly can't on a flat piece of land like mine. You're going to have, you can't do it. Now, just to backtrack a bit, I want to explain here on page 2.4 is, shows the land value of what the assessor has assessed. 5.5 million. It shows the total heated area at 3,252. That's what I have existing. Here is a plat on page 2.6 showing my area in Pitkin Green. I'm one of the smallest lots around. And you can see the road, this is a private road easement. That's why the private roads that go around have to be deducted from FAR. Not county roads, just this little private, and I'm small enough to begin with, and with this deduction I end up with approximately 0.6 of an acre, almost half an acre. And this shows the calculation, the next page, 2.7, of what Charles Cuniff back in the 90s calculated, and it is the same today, how you calculate FAR. You take the allowable your lot minus any easements, and you end up with a lot area of 25,945 times 0.13 is 3,372 square feet of house that I can build. And this has been confirmed by Gibson, another architect, back in the 70s. And here is on next page, 2.7, you have a survey where it shows the 40-foot road easement. This is a problem here. Circulating my house, private road, and how that encumbers my lot. Yet, all through these years, I have been overassessed, overappraised. I paid $11,695 with my land value being $5,500,000 on that little lot. Now, if we go down to the next schedule, the next property on the schedule, 1151, Willoughby, that's another neighbor. They have a land size of 1.2 acres. Okay, this is on page 13A. 1.2 acres they have a land size. That's twice the size of mine. And yet, the assessor put 5.5 million on their land. That's what he assessed me at, 5.5 million. Yet, they can build a 6,700 square foot home. I'm on page 13A. I'm sorry if I've confused everybody. 13A, here you see the house. More views of the house. Big home, 600 and 700 square feet. The views from the house are pretty much open. We're on page 13C. A beautiful view of, you're looking down the valley. You've got a view of Aspen Mountain, which you don't particularly from my house because of the trees growing up in front of it. You have a view of Highlands, you have a view of Buttermilk, and yet it's twice the lot size with a huge home on it, and the land value is $5,500,000. That's the same that my land value is. But I can only build 3,300 some square feet house, and they could build a 6,700 square foot house. Okay, let's go to 1033 Willoughby. This is this home that Wendy mentioned, and this is on page 15. Page 15. Now, this is a nice new home. It's approximately 7/10 of an acre. However, there's no road deduction from that 7/10 of an acre. They can have more FAR than I. They have above grade 4,442 square feet. If you look on page 15, 16, total heated area. 4,442. Okay? And that's above, I consider that above grade when you have views up and down stairs of views like this. Let's look at page 15B. Here are their views. Okay, we've got views again. Aspen Mountain, Highlands, Buttermilk. We have a little carriage house, an additional home. There's a residence above this little garage. This is on page 15B. Is everybody there? This 2,000 square feet above grade and below grade is poppycock because those are really above grade. And here's some other views of this beautiful home and its structure. Now, I would like to mention my neighbor behind me. All these lots and all these homes are either bigger lots, better views, and newer homes. Mine was built in 1959, and with the 211 or whatever, the cheapest kind of siding. I mean, it's if a tear down, if I've ever seen one. But here is a beautiful log home at 153 Heron Hollow. That's 18A. That's the house behind me, the Kirby home. They're on 9/10 of an acre. I'm on 0.6 after the road deduction, but they have some road deduction there too because they share the back of Heron Hollow with me. And it's a brand new, beautiful log home. If you look on page 19, you'll see that the land on this 9/10 of an acre was valued at $4 million. Yet mine was valued at $5.5 million. And they have a house that is a beautiful log home with views. If you look at the views, well, their home is, heated area is 3,794. It's a little larger than mine, but it's brand new. And they're asking, it's on the market for $2.9 million. Now, that's today. It's on the market for $2.9 million, but the fact is that it is larger acreage. They can add on, and again, the assessor has overassessed my land and by their assessment. Now, here's another one, a friend on Red Mountain, Joyce Scher. She got assessed her land at $2.8 million. This is page 21A. This has views. Oh, well, this has views back in the hollow. This has the same views as mine too, and we'll go back to that. But
What is the address of this one?
on Red Mountain, it's page 21A, and it's 951 Red Mountain. 951 Red Mountain. That's Joyce Scher. She has 9/10 of an acre. 9/10 of an acre, and she was assessed at $2.8 million. And look at the views. She's selling this now for $5,695,000. This is this one. And she's got unobstructed views of Aspen Mountain. At this point, I can't even see Aspen Mountain. She has, her land value was $8 million. No, excuse me. Her land value was $2.8 million, and her home value, and she has 3,574 square feet. And last but not least is my neighbor up the block, Brent Waldron, and he has an older home like mine, but mine's even older, and he's done some remodeled on his. This is 186 Magnifico. And this land value is assessed at $4,600,000. Now, the reason, and it has 0.73 acres. It has no encumbrance. That stays at 7.3. He's on a hill. He can build a 3-story, beautiful, big home there, and yet he was only assessed at 4.6, and his views are totally unobstructed. Look at these views. Nobody can build in front of him like was built in front of me, where they moved the land around up 15 feet and regraded and planted tall trees. This is up and down the valley. You have Independence, you have Aspen Mountain, you have Highlands, you have Buttermilk and Snowmass up and down. And so what I would like to say is that when I tried to list this and ask realtors, well, what do you think? I get letters from John McCormick, this is page 25, stating that you are so impacted by the size of your lot that, if you can't build at least a 6,000 square foot home, well, forget it, sort of. I don't believe that, obviously. There are small homes that are okay, but I have been way over assessed on my land value. And I would like you to look at page 3, going back to the schedule that was done up by the appraiser Dave Ritter, and we decided, well, what's fair here? Let's take a compare
Sorry,
by
what
code.
page is that? Page 3
Of the whole packet, so you got to kind of look through here. And it's sort of on the front too, but here it shows the schedule. If you take all these huge lots and these values, land values of these properties that we just visited, and you do an average, just a simple average, you come out with a land value of $3,670,000. And that's assuming that I'm not even impacted, or no, I guess it is assuming I'm impacted, because he says allowable site by code. Okay, so this is assuming that I have 0.6 of an acre of usable lot size, which is the case. I only have 0.6 of an acre of usable, that means what I can build on, lot size, where all these other people with their 2.5 acres and full acres and et cetera, can build much bigger homes. Then here's another schedule. Let's look at that differently. What the value is compared to what you could build.
So what page is this now?
This is the page 4. This schedule. Again, doing an analysis, maximum floor area by code. If you compare the fact that I can only build 3,372 square feet and compare it with all these other cells, because there aren't other cells, and they're in the Red Mountain neighborhood, the value comes out, again, the midpoint's $3,640,000, or total value $3,700,000. In sum, there's a little, I can show you what I've been paying. I get back a day late and I want to protest my taxes. Oh no, you got to go for an abatement. Sorry, you're a day late. you could see how they just skyrocketed.
Do we have that document here?
And yes, I think I
Last page.
stuck it there someplace.
In the new packet.
Yeah.
It's not, I know Tommy Isaacs thinks I have a great lot and he thinks, that this is fairly assessed. For years, I feel I have been overpaid. I'm overassessed, I've been overpaying. I have a house that is a definite tear down that is far inferior to all these that I've shown you, and is much older. It was the first house up there, and it's been impacted by this road. And you wonder, it's hard paying these taxes. We're just all struggling to sort of survive here, but the assessor seems to think, well, that's tough. You have to do what's fair. And when you look at these and you see how I have been way overassessed in what I can build and the land value, I feel it's time to look at what the real value is. And it's certainly below, it's in the $3 million range, particularly with a neighbor who lives behind me in a beautiful new log house and has the same views as I, and is selling his presently for $2.9 million. I don't even know whether he's going to get that. But I feel I have been treated unfairly over all these years, and it's time to try and adjust that. And I hope that you can help me.
So, Janae, the current valuation of your house is $61,000. Do you think that's fair?
It's a little high, but yeah, it's a tear down. I think it's high compared to, I think it should be around 40 or, it's a very old house.
But in relation to these other houses you're talking about, is it fair?
It's what it is, yeah. That it's the land value.
The land
I'm not
value-
going to argue that point. You can argue everything, but I'm not.
I'm just asking you whether you think it's fair or not.
I think it's high.
You think?
I think it's high, but I'm not going to argue.
$61,000 assessment on your valuation of your house is high.
I think it's a little high, but the land value is what I really think is high.
Mm-hmm. So your argument is essentially the land value.
The argument is land value. You're right.
Okay. Any questions for Janae?
I have a question, I guess, for Mike, which, if I might ask that one.
Okay, go ahead.
It sounds like a lot of this argument is hinging on this 3372 number, which is what the applicant's is suggesting is the maximum square footage that they can build on that lot. But I think I heard differently previously. So what's the code tell us in terms of what's allowable on this lot? And I would say this is a public hearing, so this is probably admissible when they want to build in the future to say, hey, well, you've been taxing me based on this information. So what's the information on what you can build on this lot?
Sure. Well, wait. They're taxing, the taxes are based on what you possess on that lot at the time of the taxation occurs, not on potential.
The land value is based on the potential building power of the lot. Yes, I would say.
In part.
In part.
In part, but not entirely.
Correct.
Okay. Michael?
Sure. So almost the entirety of Red Mountain is zoned R30. R30 zone district affords a 0.13 floor area ratio, or 13% of your lot area. And Janae and Wendy both are correct. There's an encumbrance of a road easement on the property, and the area of that road easement is deducted from the lot size. So if you think about it in a mathematical equation, it's really quite simple. You have your lot size, which is the entirety of the lot. Take away any access or road easements that encumber a lot. and that gives you what's called lot area. And then lot area is multiplied by 0.13. And the numbers that are being thrown out, this 3372, is the correct number, and that's what can be built above grade for this lot. And every other lot on Red Mountain, the lot area times 0.13 is their above grade allowable buildable. And yeah, that's our zoning code. Now, because this is within the UGB, our urban growth boundary, it's also afforded a 4,000 square foot subgrade space. And that's true subgrade, not walkout basement, but true subgrade space that is below grade. And that can be a maximum of 4,000 square feet. And then lots within the UGB with floor area ratios are also afforded a 750 square foot garage. So in theory, one can build their above grade 3372, well, for Janae's lot, I'm speaking to, a 4,000 square foot subgrade space, and then 750 square foot garage. And because our current growth management exemption in the county is 5750, to attain that much floor area, which totals to 8,122, one would have to purchase a transferable development right to attain that much floor area. So that's basically the way zoning in this area works.
Does that answer your question, Rob?
Yeah, and yes,
Can I make
but
a
I think it's
Hold on.
important to also understand how that 8122, which is what I just heard is the maximum with the TDR, if you were to max out the space with the extra garage space, how does that compare to these other comparables that we've seen these, the applicant has put forward these assessor reports with total heated area. So when I'm trying to figure out what my question is. How does that number compare to these other comparables? Is I guess what I'm saying. Because I think the land, in my opinion, the land is valued for its potential buildability as a tear down or whatever, and the land is 90% of the values on most of these comparables. So if we look at just the land value, the land is, to compare apples and apples, you have to look at how much square footage you're allowed to build on those properties. So I'm trying to get an understanding of, if you're saying the maximum square footage with subgrade stuff is 8,000, or a little bit above 8,000, how does that compare to these other comparables with their 4,000 below grade and their, does that make sense? I don't know if it's...
Well, I think that actually might be too complex
Yeah.
for Michael to answer, because really he's
Yeah,
here
no,
to talk about ratios and...
So maybe it's for the applicant to address how she feels this compares,
Well,
now that she's heard that number.
Two parts.
Thank you, Michael.
So Michael just is addressing Janae's potential on her lot.
Gotcha.
And I don't think he isn't prepared to go through the potential of all these other lots.
I agree.
Okay, so hold on, Janae. Well, we'll get to you. This is a hearing that you're going to be heard, and all the commissioners are going to be heard, and everybody here is going to be heard. Just take it easy. So that question, I think, then goes back to the land values of the comparables that Wendy presented, and then I think we should have the assessor answer that question and Janae to answer that question. Janae, go ahead and begin answering Rob's question in terms of the valuation of your land versus the square footage that you have.
I want to answer what Rob was asking. How does that compare to every other house and all these comparables? Well, it's the same thing. They have an additional 4,000 square feet below grade that they can do too. If you took this, which is all above grade, what you're looking at is assessment above grade. It's not below grades. First floor, second floor, I don't know about this. I'm not garden level basement.
Let me just clarify.
I'm not sure. But to answer your question.
Janae, let me just clarify what you said. Where you've marked off, it says total heated area.
Right.
And you're saying that only applies to the above grade space. Is that correct? I'm asking one of the assessors.
Well,
And
no,
the answer to that is the total heated area also includes basement,
Heated basement area.
heated, livable basement. And so elsewhere, I would have to look at the sheet, but elsewhere in the assessor's printouts, the floor areas are broken out, by level. And so where it says total heated living area, that in some cases can be totally above grade, but it can also include below grade space as well.
And I'm trying to understand the numbers here. So Janae, let me ask you a direct question. On your calculations on page 4 of maximum floor area by code, you've got 109 Willoughby Way that says 13,000 square feet. And you've got your 3372 number as part of this calculation. Is that 13,000 square feet, does that include subgrade area?
I do
And
not.
if it does,
No,
then
it
the
doesn't.
then the 33 number, I think the number you should have used there is the 8122.
No, it does not. It does not. This is above grade. I had this done by an assessor, Jade Ritter. This is above grade. You can see the areas. You can see the different floor levels. Above grade, I'm assuming, and I'm using as a view, a walkout view. This is on 7.
Jack,
Well, I want everyone to kind of catch up to where they're at so I can then ask another question.
okay.
Up to
So-
you, Michael. whenever.
Well, Jeanette, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeanette. I thought Jack had a question for me too. So we'll let Jeanette finish her response to Rob, and then
Yeah,
you can
thank
ask
you.
your question.
Okay, so all these are above, you can see, maybe this was at one time considered below, but these are all above grade, however. Walkout above grade, mine's above grade. This one's all above grade. They have views from these areas. If you put a below grade on my lot, it would be buried and you wouldn't see anything. There's no way you could get a view because it's flat.
Jack, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, okay, so this is for Janae, just to get me back to focusing instead of tremendous amount of data, which I compliment you on, is to the research. Why you're here today is to protest your land value. We're not really focusing.
Well, it's the total value in the land.
Well, I understand that there's a total value, but your main discomfort is the land value.
Correct.
And I might be putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I am in any way wrong. And so the first thing I'm trying to understand is, we're talking about land values. When I look at just the examples you've given us here on what is page 1, as articulated throughout in numerous pages and ABC addendums to those numbers, I see an initial inconsistency or discrepancy in two ways. There are larger lots that have some approximate land values, and then there are even lots of the same size or larger but have less values. And so that's what you've articulated. So my question to the assessor's office, because we'll be flexible as to who answers, how do you explain the discrepancy? For example, we have a 0.96 acre property Now, and I'm going on, that's what, these are facts, so I'm going to accept that at face value on page 1, as far as size of lots. How do we have $4 million in value, but Janae's property is it's in total, let's not talk about the road easement right now, is what, 0.74 or something, or 9, whatever, 8. And that's $5,500,000. Second example, 0.92 acres, $2.8 million for the land value. Help me out understanding the discrepancy or inconsistency here, either Wendy or Larry.
Certainly. The thing you have to understand, when we assign land values, and this is throughout the county, I think there's a misconception that the land size in and of itself is the be-all and the end-all of land value. And I think that there are clearly other criteria that come into play as far as assigning land values. And that has to do with the location of the parcel, the views of the parcel, the topography of the parcel. All of those things come into play when assigning land values to a parcel. And I think what has been attempted here is to present the information in such a way that it represents a land value solely on a per acre basis or solely on an allowable floor area that can be built basis. And I think by doing that, it eliminates the other factors that contribute to value, which include views, location, topography, et cetera, et cetera. If I can give a couple of examples. Janae's house is at the entrance to Heron Hollow, but if you take Heron Hollow up and you go behind the bluff, there are lots that basically look into the back side of a hill. And so that's a case where perhaps you could have a 2.5 acre parcel, but if your view is this, as opposed to, you know, the view of the mountains that is afforded on the front side of that bluff, then that's a clear example of where a larger parcel in and of itself doesn't have the value because although you may be able to build a larger house on that parcel, the amenities that people are purchasing isn't just the size of the home that can be built. And if I may, maybe I can discuss a couple of things in regards to the methodology of what has been done here and the flaws that I see, you know, with that as opposed to what Wendy has done with her appraisal. The comparisons that have been made, first of all, on Janae's first page, there are two groups of properties. The first four are actual sales, but those are sales of improved properties. The second four are not sales. Those are just neighboring properties. And it goes back to, you know, what was brought up by Jack in the prior hearing. Is it appropriate to use the values that were assigned to neighboring properties in a given subdivision and use those as the basis of value? I would say that the best indicator of value would be actual comparable sales with adjustments that have been made to account for the differences between the sale property and the subject property. What they've done with this analysis, in Ritter's analysis, what they have done is they have taken these improved sales. For example, the Troyer-Truesdale property that sold at 109 Willoughby was a $20 million sale. And instead of trying to use that sale as a comparable for improved property to improved property, what they've done is taken the assigned land value to that property and then tried to massage that number. You know, he did two sheets. His two sheet, the first, takes the value and tries to assign a per acre value and then applies that per acre value to the subject property. Okay, and again, by taking just a per acre value without taking into account views, location, topography, et cetera, you eliminate all of the other factors that contribute to value by using just a per acre value in and of itself. The second page analysis does an analysis of allowable floor area. And there are a couple of flaws that I see with that also. Again, they're using not the value of a site that was determined by the sale of a site. They are using the value of a property, the assessor's assigned land value for that property, and then try to do the analysis with that. What I see with the floor area analysis is that, and this is on page 4, I believe. So for example, if you look at the first sale that is listed here, it's a 2.45 acre parcel. And I'm assuming that when it says allowable floor area by code, as far as the allowable floor area, where it says 13,874, that is 0.13 of 2.45 acres. Well, I think Mike can explain that the allowable floor area by code is 5,750. So even though you've got a 2.5 acre lot, it doesn't mean that you just get to extrapolate that in perpetuity to get the maximum allowable sales per floor area for that parcel. 13,874 is what may be allowable if you buy additional TDRs, but that is not what you get by right just for having a larger parcel. And in doing that, then what he's done is to say, okay, well, you take the $9 million value that was assigned by the assessor, which was not a sale in and of itself, you divide that by the 13,874 square feet to get $649 per square foot of allowable FAR. He then applies that to the subject's allowable floor area to get a land value of $2,187,000. And I would say that I've never seen an appraisal anywhere that has determined a land value for a property other than by using actual land sales. And so if the purpose of the petitioner's appeal is to assign a land value, it certainly seems to me that rather than using land values that had been assigned by the assessor's office as the basis of value, that it would have been more germane to use actual land sales and try to do an analysis of those land sales relative to the subject's property. And I find that analysis is missing. In this case, I feel like the analysis that Wendy has done in trying to use improved sales, similarly situated, and make adjustments to those improved sales relative to the subject, more accurately accounts for the differences between the sale properties and the subject property, and provides a more sound basis of value for the subject property. We are recommending an adjustment. I believe the initial value was something like 5.5, and Wendy is adjusting a revised value of $4,850,000. I think the flaw of the analysis, the fact that Ms. Kirk has not relied on actual either vacant land sales or taken improved sales and made adjustments to the property differences between the improved sales and the subject property. I think that is an inaccurate means of comparison as far as appraisal analysis is concerned, and I don't believe that gives a reliable result. The last thing that I would bring to mind is the attempt to say that, well, what the neighbor got, it should be the basis of what I get. There have been court cases, one in particular, that says that it is incorrect to use equalization, i.e. comparison to other properties in the neighborhood, as the basis of value. This is a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And a couple of pertinent parts of this, for example, it says, in this case, for this reason, the proper focus of the district court's inquiry was not whether the assessor's value of the Podol's individual improvements was equal to the values of assigned to similar subdivision properties, but whether the assessor's valuation of the Podol's improvement was correct. So we're not here to say whether or not the value of Ms. Kirk's property is correct relative to what we did to the other properties in the neighborhood. What we're here to say is whether or not the value that was assigned to Ms. Kirk's property is in fact accurate. And I believe that the comparable sales that Wendy presented, with adjustments to specific line items for each of those comparables, is the best indicator of value, for the reasons that I indicated.
Larry, it's really the only indicator of value you can use in this case, isn't it?
Comparable sales of similarly situated, improved properties. I think that's...
Right. Are there any questions for Larry? Janae, do you want to respond?
Yes. These were done by an assessor, and these...
Well, you mean an appraiser.
An appraiser, and an appraiser. We didn't pull these out. It's very clear that these are comparable sales in the neighborhood. The square footage is correct on these. They're above grade. The land value is assessed here, and while the assessor might say, well, we don't normally go by these kinds of charts, it's definitely a comparative. You can't just come up with other comparables in another area, as Wendy has done all of a sudden, and say this is where we came up with this. It's clear that the assessor is all over the chart when it comes to land values. It's very clear that I have been over-assessed year after year for the last 4 years on my land. And I don't know how you can look at my house and say, well, here's the house behind me with great views. These are the views from here, the same views as I have, only better because they're up higher. They can go below grade and get their $4,000 below grade when they sell this $2.2 million house and build even more than what they have. I think if you take the time to go through these and realize that I have been so unfairly compared, that these are good comparables and that I have been unfairly assessed, it stands to reason to, the assessor has a lot to assess, and he's just over-assessed me unfairly, I feel, over and over and over. This front page shows where these, as it's been brought up, where the land value is assigned the same as mine, and yet they can build, and they have built 7,000 square foot homes. That's the value that you pay for a lot. A 7,000 square foot home, if you can build that, you're going to pay $5.5 million on your land. Nobody's going to pay $5.5 million on my land, or even $4.75 or whatever they want to compare me to, or lower the assessment, when you can only build a 3,300 square foot house. And nobody is going to dig up this flat lot and put something below grade, or with TDRs or whatever. Everybody is allotted that, and I get emotional over this because I know that Tommy Isaacs has it out for me, and I feel that he is totally, he has fought me on this year after year, and for whatever reasons, I feel that this is my assessment on the land is $3,300,000, and I just urge you all to look at those comparables.
Thank you, Jeanette. George, what do you got?
Yeah, I just want to correct a few things. Your property was appraised based on standard appraisal practices using comparable sales. What you're showing us here from Dave Ritter, this is not an appraisal.
I
believe
do
me,
have
this is not an appraisal. You know, these are just some numbers that Dave put together for some comparisons, but they're not, as Larry said, they're not apples to apples. But it's not an appraisal.
I do have an appraisal though.
Well, then that should be shared if it's during the same time frame that we're talking about. The other thing is the ability to build subgrade, whether you want to build subgrade or not. Many people do. In fact, we just recently approved a subgrade for some homes down in Woody Creek that were substantial in size. So there is a demand for people who want additional square footage to build subgrade. You may not want to, but it's not to say that another person would or would not. In fact, we had a similar situation where we just approved subgrade on the ridge of Red Mountain, the same way. So I just want to make it clear that when you're looking at appraisal, there is a methodology that is used, that is accepted in the industry in terms of how appraisals are done and how properties are valued. Now, you may not agree with that, and that's why you're here, and I understand that. But I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. This is not an appraisal.
Well, I do have an appraisal. And it was done back in 2008. And it was appraised at $4.3 million back in 2008. This is the appraisal.
So again, Larry, that's not during the time period. What's the time period that we're looking at?
That's the peak of it.
The data collection period for this time period is June of 2008 through June 30th of 2010. And so this appraisal would be at the very front. I'm not sure what date it was done or the dates of the sales that were used as the basis of the appraisal, but I would say that that would be at the very front end of that period.
Okay, and I don't really need to look
Well,
at
it
this
was
appraisal,
$4,370,000, and it was date of appraisal was June 30th, 2008. Or June 29th, 2010. Date of appraisal report, June 29th, 2010. So here's an appraisal.
So those would be the comps that you should be using in terms of your argument. I'm not going to look through this right now because that's hours worth of work. But those would be the comps that you should be arguing for versus looking at these sheets.
Well, that's what Dave gave me, and he also did this appraisal. And it's
So,
the appraisal's $4.3 million, but it was June 29th, 2010.
So Rob, you have any questions?
yeah, June 29th, the appraisal date for the assessor's office is 2010, right? It's June
30th, 2010.
So within a couple months of when this appraisal was done.
Correct.
And different methodologies.
No. And in fact, that appraisal was done during the last valuation cycle. Ms. Kirk appealed all the way to the BAA.
Yeah.
And this is the appraisal that was done in preparation for the hearing at the BAA. It has a valuation date of June 30th, 2008. So even though it was written after that point.
Oh, okay, it was written in
the
2010 for the
correct.
evaluation of 2010.
Correct. And
Which
so-
weren't the
Gotcha.
properties at the peak then, though?
Well,
At much higher
right.
in 2008.
But the sales that were used as the basis of that appraisal predate 2008. So
Yeah.
that goes even farther back.
Yeah.
In which case, those are sales that likely, were used. But again, being that this was an appraisal that was done, as part of the appeal process, and I think we ended up settling for a value that was higher than the value indicated on the appraisal. So I don't know, without, full review of the appraisal, how much it would be worth.
Well, we didn't go through the appeal.
I understand, but we settled before it went to an actual hearing, and I believe the number that we settled on was higher than the 4 million, that was indicated in Dave's appraisal. So all I'm saying is, for this hearing, I don't know that appraisal is necessarily germane.
So Jack, do you have a question?
Yeah, I want to clarify, in the memo, I believe Wendy has 4,635,000. Wait, no, that's the refund. Yeah, I can't find it in here, but 485, that's what I'm looking at.
Correct.
Now, is that including the home?
That's
the
total value.
improvement?
Correct.
So then approximately we would reduce, for the sake of this discussion, to try to back into land value, reduce it by $62,000, almost $62,000, right?
Well, the original value was 5.5 something, 5,561,000, and that is being adjusted. We're recommending an adjustment to 4,850,000.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is figure out what is the actual land value there, not the
Okay,
improvements.
so assuming that the improvements are roughly 60,000.
The same one.
So that you
Yeah.
could say that essentially the land value has been adjusted, say, to 4.8. So if we're saying 4,850,000, right? And of that 4,850,000, 50,000 is building value. Then the residual land value would be plus or minus 4.8.
What I'm getting here is if it's 4.85 and you reduce it by 62,000, you've got 4,230,000.
4,788,000 approximately.
Yeah, I'm only using 1 decibel, and then I'm trying to figure out how to reduce 61,000, so it's tough. But anyway, point being is 4.85 is what we're talking about total value here. Now I want to ask about state law, because I feel, and I believe unequivocally the assessor's office follows state law. There's no question, no unfairness. You follow the law, the rules. But this easement, the road easement that's deducted, for me that's inherently unfair. But what does state law instruct the assessor to do about a road easement that deducts land?
I don't know that the law speaks to that specifically. I think, that would, that's something that would have to be, taken into account as far as establishing, the market value of the property. And we feel like we've done that in making the adjustments that we have. Because this issue has been the same issue that we've dealt with, Ms. Kirk, for a lot of prior appeals. We actually had built into our software an adjustment in order to account for the fact that this property is subject to an easement, whereas neighboring properties are not subject to that easement. So the original value, the 5.5 that we assigned, to the underlying land value for Ms. Kirk's property, actually has an adjustment built in to get it down to that 5.5. If that adjustment weren't there, her underlying land value would be, I want to say 10 or 15% even higher than it currently is.
Okay, good. I'm glad we clarified that, because that's an annoying sound, number one. Number two, good. That's articulated, and I understand that's already been incorporated in your calculations. Okay. So then, now getting to the bottom line for me, where I come from, I absolutely get, because I did ask the same question in the previous hearing, about how the assessor uses the market approach and you use for sale, sales, as to try to arrive. Well, not that there's many sales here, but at least we have a reasonable number of comparables typical of our hearings. But then, once you do that, and the reason why we're here is because of the discretion we have as commissioners. And it's a gut feeling, it's a whatever. And so, my analysis cannot exclude the analysis that she provided from 18A to page 24, and it's on page 1 of her sheet, where the last 4, those are not sales, they're just neighbor properties, as it were. I understand what the law requires, but this is an analysis that's important too, and I believe we do have the ability to use our discretion. Ultimately, each of us, because there's no formula, set by law that you have acreage, visibility, improvements, access, all these things that you generate out of a computer and it gives you a number. And so for me, this property has less value than the land value I'm talking about, has less value because of elements that we've been shown in neighborhood. And I'm familiar with this neighborhood because I manage a home in this neighborhood. And so there are mansions and there are old funky homes and everything in between. And so for me, and I have to ask the assessor what the improvement value is, but there's no way, of the home itself. That's a standalone number, but there's no way for me that I see that this property should be valued at the original 5.5 million. I think it's much less. And I guess one of the few times I might ever say it in my commissioner time, trees do obstruct views. That's amazing. We love trees. There's an inconsistency for me. But I've been around the corner because I went to a home that was being built around the corner, and we had an issue about caretaker units or what, I don't remember. It's been 8 years or something. But, and so in fact, I think this property is worth at least $1 million less than the 5.5. And that's just kind of where I land because of trying to understand all this data, familiarity with the neighborhood, the time period is important. One of the few times I'm disagreeing with the assessor in all these years, respectfully.
Jack, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
So, Michael, a question to try to ascertain. If we're at 5.5 and then that was the total value, right? Improvements in land or?
5,561,000.
Yeah, 561. I got to make sure I'm starting with my basis. And we're at 485. 4,850,000 is out. Yes, that's it here. Because I confused myself by decibels. Not decibels. Anyway, tens, 20, the number game. I'm blanking out. It's hard for me. I'm trying to.
Let me help Jack.
I really think that we ought to be about, on the whole property, I would make a motion to value the property, including the land and improvements, at $4.25 million.
I will second that motion, and I'll add some discussion to it. I think the assessor's office uses a set guideline for appraising a property's value, and I think that set guideline, although set by various statutes, has got its faults, just like the data that has been presented to us has its faults. And I do think, I agree with Jack that there is some leeway when data is presented to tackle things in various different ways. And I don't take any of this from a face value. I think one of the things which I wish was more part of this, probably would have made an even better argument, is that appraisal from a 2008 evaluation of, I don't know what you said it was, 4-point-something million. And I think the market has diminished dramatically from then. And I'm not saying that that's the proper way to appraise it. I'm saying as commissioners in a hearing, you come to I think you come to a way of kind of looking at all the data and saying, what's the best end to, take a little of this and take a little of that. And I think looking at the information that was presented today, I can feel very comfortable with that $4.25 million.
Any further discussion, George?
Jack, I don't understand how you came up with that number. You have to help me out.
Well, I can see obviously the comparables and how deductions, etc. And I tried to focus on the land in particular, because improvements, say the guy next door, great, he has a newer or larger home, and that's a matter of time, I guess. But Janae did say that the issue was the land. And, though I understand what the law says, you do sales, these other properties speak for themselves. On page 1, we have larger properties with beautiful views of Aspen Mountain, Buttermilk, and Highlands that are assessed at 2-something. I should get my one page, so I'm speaking from facts. The property is assessed at $2,800,000, and we're talking about this property number on page 19. And then you look at the views. It's no. Okay, so we got to keep going. Go to the next property. George, you asked, so I have to get.
No, I guess
I'm trying to deal with that.
That's what I was confused about, because when you first started, Jack, you noted that the original valuation of the appraisers that the assessor's office put on this was $5,561,700.
Right.
And you said, well, I think we should take $1 million off. I said, okay, so that makes it at $4,507,000. So my question is, how'd you go from $4.5 million down to 4.2?
Because I was starting from, when I said $1 million, I was speaking in general terms, not specific, because I hadn't been able to digest all these numbers and trying to come up with an average. And quite frankly, and I admit now for the 4th time probably that I didn't get all my zeros in there, and it ruined my my subtraction. Because I went 4.85 million and reduced it by 0.62. No, it wasn't 600,000. It was only 62,000 or 60. So that's where my error was. So I'm actually more than that million to get to the 425. And therefore it's about 1,250,000 is that number that I'm talking about in land.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. So I guess the effect is to uphold the assessor's assessment.
I don't think so. I think we have a no decision right now. Now, you can make a motion, and county attorney's not here, so excuse me for interjecting my understanding of the process. A 2-2 is a
The
no
motion
decision.
holds no decision. The motion fails. No,
Yeah,
back
so
to,
someone can make another motion, and then we can proceed.
Let me ask.
It would be a fail, but you can make another motion. It would probably go the same way, just the other way.
Is there another motion?
I'll make a motion. You know, again, the original evaluation was 5.5 mil. The appraisers, the assessors reduced it to 4.85. You know, I think there's always some leeway in there. I would make a motion for the assessed value of 4.5 million.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I think I'll just say for further discussion, I think it's hard to come to an exact number, and I think it's getting a feel where we feel comfortable to make a decision as a board, as a group. There is an additional appeal process for the applicant beyond this board. So, with that said,
Yeah, you can appeal to the VA.
So
Michael,
Yes.
Nancy, I'm hoping that this motion gets turned down, and then I will make a motion to split that difference, George. So where we are would be in between what I and you originally offered, I think now, and my number's correct. But I was at 4.25, you're at 4.5, correct?
Right.
That was your motion, so.
So I'll call the question. The motion is for $4.5 million. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes with a valuation of 4.5.
And I'd like to register my vote if you'd call the question.
Opposed?
Opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank everyone.
Junior assessor.
I want to thank everybody for
Michael
your time.
yeah, thank you guys all for.
Can we have a motion to go out of special meeting?
Is there a motion to go out of special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. We're going to have 3:15, approximately 45 minutes past our scheduled time, but we're going to take here the value to be adjusted to 4.5 for the tax year 2011. We were carrying forward also in 2010.
You'll get a notice from the board which tells out, if you choose to appeal further, you have the right to do that, or if the 4.5 is acceptable
welcome back. This is the Board of County Commissioners work session for November 27, 2012. It's about 3:25, and we're just now getting to our memorandums of interest. The first memorandum is a request from the Susan G. Komen Foundation of Aspen for a refund of their special events or events permitting. Michael, are you here to answer questions about that, or?
I can present or I can answer questions, however you feel.
It seems to be pretty straightforward. So, Board, yes, Jack?
A question. Michael, in the letter by Logan Hood, indicates what the special permit was for, but it did include liquor, a liquor license. So is there a way to back out some kind of allocation for that and still refund some money? I mean, because a permit is all-inclusive, I guess, in this case, because it had alcohol.
Well, I just became aware of the number and what Logan was specifically asking for, but there is an avenue for the board to reimburse special event permit fees. Now, the special event permit fee that Logan is talking about in her letter, if broken out, would be the $624 ComDev special event permit fee. And Phyllis just showed me the letter, and it said that there was a liquor permit fee and a variable board message sign permit fee, tent permit fee, fire inspection fee. Those fees are not associated with the ComDev special event fee. That fee specific to ComDev is $624.
So, Board, any further questions?
649, right?
Well,
At least that's what's in the memo.
That's what it says.
yeah. I should clarify here. 624 is ComDev's flat planning fee, and then there's a $25 clerk tech fee that gets applied to every application. So yeah, 649 is the total.
Well, I would be supportive of refunding the 649, our fees.
Board?
Just a question, how have we done this historically? Is this out of our discretionary fund that we do it? So it's not out of ComDev. ComDev doesn't pay.
Definitely out of our discretionary fund.
I support George's
You support it, Rob?
discussion.
So the board supports the refund of $649, representing the community development fees to the special events permit. Thank you, Michael. And I guess Phyllis will send them a letter, or send them the letter and a check, I guess. The next item is the 2013 holidays schedule, and Stephen Pingree is here instead of Jeanette Logan. So, why is that?
She is ill.
Okay.
So
Send her our best wishes.
will do.
So, what is the holiday schedule for 2013?
The holiday schedule is in the packet, so it's pretty typical. Last year we added the Veterans Day in part of all that, and we had that discussion, I believe, last year. And this year was the first year that Veterans Day. So everything remains the same as in previous years. And so this is the holiday schedule for 2013. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King, President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day, and then Christmas Eve Day. And so, which is pretty typical. There was one area of discussion, and that was for July the 4th and Independence Day, and that falls on a Thursday, and the question was, should we be closed on Friday? And this would be closed to the public on Friday. We did a census of a number of municipalities and counties, and out of many of them, I think out of 16 respondents, 2 counties and 1 township are recognizing July 5th, and so they're closing their offices on July 5th. That is not recommended here, just to have access to the county for July 5th for the public.
Board, any questions for Stephen? Yes, George, and then Jack.
Stephen, were we closed this year, the day after Thanksgiving?
Yes.
We were?
Yes.
The offices were closed?
Yes, the offices were closed. Now, there's certain offices where individuals can work. So the offices to the public were closed, but we allow flexibility in most of our offices. There's certain obvious offices or departments that are open, road and bridge, sheriff's office, communication, but we allow flexibility with the section leader on some of those holidays if employees want to come in and work on their own accord and not use their leave time for that day.
So because the way the employees, the way they accrue vacation days is not necessarily per holiday. So these days, these holidays, it's more of a case where we're telling the public that our offices will be closed.
More or less. In some of the departments, the clerk and recorder, treasurer, assessor, landfill, library, basically a lot of those employees, line staff, that's what they do. Library is, they need to be there when it's open, so when it's closed, they probably don't have work that they can catch up and do. So a lot of those employees will be off, but that's at the discretion of the particular section leader. We haven't found too many issues with that from employees or supervisors in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, Stephen, it's kind of wonder about the operation of the calendar, because it's really inconsistent from 8 to 11 days. And for example, last year we added an extra day, meaning Veterans Day, and that last year, 2011, was still only 8 days. This year, it looks like, was last year the first year in 11, or was it this year was the first year for Veterans Day?
This year was the first year for Veterans Day.
Good, so that's why it would have been 10 without, so it's 11. And so, yeah, so we propose to have 10 days off and 2 early closings. Is that what this is?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could remember how which year it came on. So I've answered my question essentially by getting that clarification.
Okay, thank you for answering your
And I
question.
support this.
Any further questions? Are we in support of this? Nod ahead? Yes? Thank you, Susan.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is a request from the Veterans History Project for $2,000. Were they informed that they were going to have this in front of the board this time? We just have a letter, we don't have to.
Yeah, I don't know that they were informed. Sorry.
Board, any discussion on this matter? Jack?
Phyllis, what is our balance you have?
That's what I was just going to email Susan. She gave it to me and it's sitting at my desk.
Excuse me?
Sorry. I'm going to email Susan right now. She gave it to me and I left it at my desk.
George, you have a question? It was the same question.
I believe it
And
was
then it
around
would be
three.
less 649.
The money was there for both of this. Just so you know, they had asked for $500 in 2011, and that's what was provided then. So they're increasing their request. Let me see if I can't get.
And then last year, we also, at the end of the year, allocated extra money, I believe, for the food pantry, the homeless shelter, and this historical, Veterans History Project. So they got over and above more than 500 last year, because Michael had brought that up in our year-end discussion of discretionary monies.
So,
I guess
yes, Rob?
one part of the discussion with this would be to figure out how much we have year end, what we did with our tally, because we kind of zeroed out the balance last year, and figure out how this fits into what we did at year end last year.
I think what Jack is saying is that we gave a base of 500 and then reevaluated further donations at the end of the town.
I guess.
Is that right,
I
Jack?
just don't remember numbers.
I guess information-wise, I'm not just looking for what we have left
Yeah.
in the fund right now. I'm looking for how much money was tallied out on December 31st, which is what we did on the last meeting of the last year. We kind of, I think we tallied out $4,000 or $5,000. I think there was a lot left. We did a donation to the housing development that had a fire, and that was close towards the end, but it wasn't all the way at the end. And then we allocated, I think, $3,000 or $4,000 at the very end, but I'm not sure who and how much.
So are you suggesting something, Rob? Are you suggesting that we?
I'm trying to get that information. I'm trying to get
Exactly how we split up at the end of the year, last year?
not only what we have left right now, but exactly how we split everything up at the end of the year.
What was the remaining balance allocated to when we made that decision?
Phyllis, do you have that answer?
I have the first question to answer, which is we currently have $4,351. I'm going to see if I can find the file that gives me the rest.
That's before the 640? is what?
Correct, before the 649.
So we have 3,700.
So, do we want to wait on this? Is that,
Would you consider going to future agendas? Well, maybe Phyllis,
okay. Is that our last request under MOI?
Yes.
So, future agendas?
I do have one item for future agendas. When I look through on December 4th, next week, we are scheduled to be back in Plaza One, but right now it seems that there will be a recount for the DA election, and so we have reserved this room again for next week. So that is the only change that I'm aware of at this point.
So we can probably count on being back in this room. That's what you're saying.
Right now, I guess Martin Beeson is making the decision as to the cost of that recount. There isn't, we don't know for sure. We're all anticipating that he will request that recount.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Yes, George?
Phyllis, based on our discussion this morning at exec session, we may want to plug in an exec session for Tuesday.
December 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
and Michael, may I on that point? Yeah, and when I look at December 4th's meeting agenda, there's a half an hour allocated for prep for the meeting for the hospital board. And I can't imagine taking a half hour for that discussion. So I think George has a reasonable point to be made and take into consideration all of that before we establish a time. You know, at least have that discussion with John
Right.
and the chairman.
We'll look at that.
And that meeting is pending getting somebody coming in too, so.
So,
I'm
think
just
you
saying,
can
John,
do that,
John Ely needs to make sure that that person can schedule their time
Yes.
to come in that day. We don't need the special exec session if that person, for some reason, has a scheduling conflict. So I'm just letting Phyllis know to coordinate with John Ely that that individual is requested his presence at the executive session.
We'll be available.
Based on them being able to.
Correct. And John will know what we're talking about.
Yes, George?
And while we're on exec sessions, we have an exec session set for Tuesday, December 11th, that we probably don't need to have, if that's the only item on it.
Well, we might or might not. Is that exec session about the program? Yeah, so.
Any other future agenda items? Seeing none. Phyllis, do we have the figures for last year's splitting of the fund?
Well, let me see what she sent me. It looks like. Okay. Yep, she gave me 2012. Let's go back. You want 2011. She didn't send me 2011.
Yeah, we could,
Let me get that again.
Okay.
She's
Just
saying the
something-
total, she did email that the total the Veterans History Project got was only the $500, so maybe that was at the end of the year. Let me go find
no,
it.
that's wrong.
Okay. Yes, Jack?
So if it's acceptable to everyone, we might just finish this up next Tuesday when
Yeah.
we meet, because we'll have the information easily accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to continue the discussion on the Veterans History Project funding until next Tuesday. We can have a more complete record of our last year's discretionary funds. Any further open discussion items at this point? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Or you can just adjourn.
It'd be good to adjourn.
I think it will be good to adjourn. Caitlin, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, grassroots.